There is a secret buried so deep inside the fabric of reality that most people will live their entire lives without ever brushing against it. And the ones who do find it, the ones who stumble into this knowledge either by accident or by years of searching, they are never the same. But here is what makes this different from every other truth you have encountered. This one comes with a warning. Not a gentle suggestion, not a soft recommendation. A warning. Because what you are about to understand has the power to reshape everything. Your circumstances, your relationships, your health, the very trajectory of your existence. And that power, like all real power, does not care about your intentions unless you care about them first. So before we go any further, before a single syllable of this knowledge settles into your awareness, you need to understand something. The universe is always listening. It is always responding. And it does not distinguish between what you create with love and what you create with selfishness, with manipulation, with the quiet cruelty of using others as stepping stones for your own elevation. It gives you exactly what you ask for, and then it gives the consequences every single time. Most people think power is something you take, something you accumulate, something you hold over others like a weapon. But the deepest truth about power, the one that ancient traditions guarded with their lives, is that real power is not something you wield, it is something you become. And what you become ripples outward into every corner of your existence with a precision that would stagger you if you could see it clearly. The knowledge contained in what follows is not theoretical. It is not philosophical entertainment. It is operational. It works. And because it works, it carries a weight that most people are not prepared for. Not because they are weak, but because they have never been told the full truth about how creation actually operates. You have been taught that the world happens to you, that circumstances arrive like weather, unpredictable and beyond your influence, that some people are lucky and others are not, that reality is fixed, solid, immovable. But what if everything you were taught was not just incomplete, but inverted? What if you are not the recipient of reality, but its architect? What if every thought you hold, every emotion you sustain, every word you speak is not a reaction to the world, but an instruction to it? This is where it begins. And this is where most people, if they are honest, start to feel uncomfortable. Because if you are creating your reality, then you are also responsible for it. All of it. The beauty and the wreckage, the abundance and the lack, the love and the loneliness. That responsibility is not a punishment. It is the doorway to everything you have ever wanted. But you have to walk through it with clean hands and a clear heart. Otherwise, the very mechanism that could set you free becomes the thing that binds you tighter than any chain ever could. Let that land for a moment. Breathe into it. Because this is not something to rush past. This is the foundation upon which everything else rests. In a quiet village along the edge of the sea, there once lived a woman who spent her evenings watching the waves. She was not watching them for beauty, though they were beautiful. She was watching them because she was searching for something she could not name. Every night, she would sit on the rocks as the tide came in, and she would feel this ache, this hollow space inside her chest, as though something essential had been removed from her life, and she could not remember what it was. She journaled about it endlessly, pages and pages filled with the same question written in different ways. Why do I feel so empty? Why does nothing ever change? Why am I always the one left standing alone while everyone else seems to find what they are looking for? She did not realize it, but every word she wrote was a command. Every question she asked was an instruction sent directly into the field of infinite possibility. And the universe, in its absolute faithfulness, answered her precisely. It gave her more emptiness, more stagnation, more solitude. Not because it was cruel, not because she deserved it, but because that was the frequency she was broadcasting. And the universe does not editorialize your requests. It does not say, well, she does not really mean that. Let me give her something better instead. It mirrors. It amplifies. It returns to you the exact energetic signature you put out, multiplied. This is the first principle you must understand. And you must understand it not just intellectually, but in your bones. Energy follows attention. Whatever you focus on expands. Not sometimes. Not when conditions are right. Always. It is as reliable as gravity, as consistent as the sunrise. Your attention is not passive observation, it is creative force. When you place your awareness on something, you are feeding it. You are giving it life. You are saying to the universe, more of this, please. And the universe says yes. It always says yes. It does not know the word no. It only knows resonance. If this is opening something in you right now, if you can feel even a small shift in how you understand your own creative power, take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel so we can continue this journey together. Think about what this means for the way you have been living. Think about where your attention has been resting, not where you want it to be, not where you tell people it is, where it actually lives when no one is watching, in the quiet hours, in the space between sleep and waking, in the moments when your guard is down and your habitual thoughts run on autopilot. That is where your real creative signal lives. That is the frequency the universe is reading. And it is responding to that signal right now, in this very moment, shaping the circumstances that will arrive in your life tomorrow, and next week, and next year. There was a man in that same village, an artist who painted with oils on canvas. For years, his work sat unseen in a small room above a bakery. No one came to look at it. No one asked about it. He would stare at the blank walls of galleries he could not enter and feel the familiar weight of invisibility pressing down on his shoulders. He told himself the story that the world did not appreciate real art, that the system was broken, that talent meant nothing without connections. And every time he told that story, he painted it deeper into his reality. The brushstrokes of his thoughts became the architecture of his experience. Rejection confirmed rejection. Invisibility bred more invisibility. The story became a prophecy that fulfilled itself with mechanical precision. But something shifted, not in his circumstances, in him. One morning he woke before dawn, and instead of reaching for the familiar narrative of struggle, he paused. He sat at the edge of his bed, and he noticed the light coming through the window. Just noticed it. The way it fell across the floor in long golden strips. The way dust particles floated through it like tiny worlds suspended in space. And for the first time in years, he felt something other than lack. He felt wonder. Just a flicker. Just a spark. But it was enough. Because that spark was a different frequency, a different signal, a different command sent into the field. He did not force it. He did not try to manufacture some artificial positivity or paste a smile over his pain. He simply allowed his attention to rest on something real and beautiful that already existed in his life. The light, the quiet, the fact that he could see at all. And from that tiny shift, something began to move. He started painting differently, not because he tried to, but because the energy flowing through him had changed. The colors were different. The compositions were different. There was a quality in the work that had not been there before, something alive and breathing and true. And people began to notice. Not because he marketed himself better or networked more aggressively, because the work itself carried a different vibration, and that vibration called to the people who were meant to receive it. This is how the law operates. Not through force, not through manipulation, not through clever strategy or relentless hustle, through resonance, through alignment, through the quiet, persistent tuning of your inner state to match the reality you wish to inhabit. The outside world is not the cause of your experience. It is the reflection of it. Change the reflection by changing what stands before the mirror. Change what stands before the mirror by changing the frequency at which you vibrate. Change your frequency by changing where you place your attention and what emotions you allow to take root in your body. But here is where the warning becomes critical. Here is where this knowledge becomes dangerous, if it is held by the wrong intention. Everything I have just described works. It works for love, and it works for fear. It works for generosity, and it works for greed. It works for healing, and it works for harm. The universe does not have a moral filter. It is a mirror, and a mirror reflects whatever stands before it without judgment. If you stand before it with hatred in your heart and use these principles to manipulate, to control, to take from others what is not freely given, the mirror will still reflect. It will still amplify. It will still return to you what you sent out. But what returns will carry the full weight of what you created. And that weight, over time, becomes unbearable. This is not punishment. Let me be very clear about that. The universe does not punish. It does not sit in judgment waiting to strike you down for your misdeeds. What happens is far more precise and far more inescapable than punishment. What happens is resonance. You become what you create. The energy you send out does not just affect your external circumstances. It reshapes your internal landscape. It rewires your nervous system. It recalibrates your emotional baseline. It changes who you are at the deepest level. And if what you are sending out is manipulation, control, deception, or harm, then those frequencies do not just go out into the world and come back as difficult circumstances. They colonize your inner world. They become the lens through which you see everything. They become the prison you did not know you were building. I want to ask you something. When you heard about that artist, and the moment he stopped reaching for the old story and simply noticed the light, did something stir in you? Have you ever had a moment like that? A moment where you caught yourself broadcasting a frequency you did not actually want to live in? Tell me about it in the comments. I want to hear what that moment was for you. There was a merchant in an ancient city who discovered these principles through a teacher he met in the marketplace. The teacher spoke of vibration, of attention, of the creative power of sustained emotion. The merchant listened carefully, not with the ears of a student seeking wisdom, but with the ears of a strategist seeking advantage. He took what he learned and applied it with surgical precision. He used the power of focused intention to manipulate his competitors. He used the principle of emotional resonance to charm his way into partnerships that served only his interests. He used the law of attention to identify and exploit the vulnerabilities of others. And it worked. For a time, everything he touched turned to gold. His wealth grew, his influence expanded. His name was spoken with a mixture of admiration and fear throughout the trading routes. But the mirror was reflecting. The mirror is always reflecting. And what the merchant had sent out was not abundance. It was extraction. It was not creation. It was consumption. And slowly, so slowly, he did not notice at first. The same energy began consuming him from the inside. His sleep became restless. His relationships became transactional. He began to see threats everywhere because the world he had created was one built on threat. He could trust no one because he himself was not trustworthy. He could find peace nowhere because every environment he entered was charged with the frequency of manipulation he had been broadcasting for years. His fortune remained, but his capacity to enjoy it evaporated. He had everything and felt nothing. He had won every game and lost the only thing that mattered, his own inner coherence. This is the price. Not a punishment imposed from outside, but a natural consequence that unfolds from within. When you use the creative power of consciousness for harm, you do not just harm others, you fragment yourself. You split your own energy into competing frequencies. You create internal dissonance that no amount of external success can resolve. And that dissonance becomes the dominant signal you broadcast, attracting more fragmentation, more conflict, more of the very chaos you thought you were controlling. So the warning is not a threat. It is a description of how reality works. It is physics, not morality. It is cause and effect operating at the level of consciousness itself. And once you understand this, truly understand it, not as a concept, but as a felt reality in your body, you will never want to misuse this knowledge. Not because you are afraid of consequences, but because you will see clearly that harming others and harming yourself are not two different actions. They are the same action experienced from different angles. Now let us go deeper, because understanding the warning is only the beginning. The real question is, how do you use this knowledge in alignment with the highest expression of who you are? How do you create powerfully without creating destructively? How do you manifest what you desire without becoming enslaved by desire itself? The answer lives in a place most people overlook. It lives in the quality of your emotional state. Not your thoughts, not your affirmations, not the vision boards on your wall or the goals written in your journal. Your emotional state. The sustained feeling tone that hums beneath all your activities like a bass note in a symphony. That feeling tone is your true creative signal. It is the frequency the universe reads and responds to. And it cannot be faked. This is why so many people try these principles and conclude that they do not work. They say the right words. They think the right thoughts. They visualize the right outcomes. But underneath all of that, their emotional body is broadcasting something entirely different. Fear dressed up as confidence. Scarcity wearing the mask of abundance. Desperation pretending to be faith. And the universe, which reads energy, not words, responds to the real signal every time. If you are beginning to sense how deep this goes, how your emotional frequency is the true broadcast, shaping everything around you, then what we have touched on here is only the surface. In my book, Beyond the Frequencies, A Quantum Guide to Consciousness Mastery, I walk you through the complete system, 9 master frequencies, step by step, layer upon layer, from breaking free of survival static all the way to living as the field itself rather than separate from it. It is linked in the pinned comment below. There was a dancer in a great city who understood this intuitively, though it took him years of suffering to arrive at the understanding. Every day he practiced his art with ferocious dedication. His technique was impeccable. His discipline was legendary. But his performances were lifeless. Something essential was missing, and no amount of practice could supply it. Because what was missing was not skill, it was presence. It was the felt experience of joy and movement. He had become so consumed by the fear of failure that every gesture was a defense against judgment rather than an expression of truth. His body moved, but his spirit was locked in a cage of anxiety, and audiences felt it. They could not name what was wrong, but they left his performances unmoved, untouched, unchanged. His transformation did not come through more practice. It came through surrender. One evening, alone in the studio, after everyone had gone, he stopped trying. He stopped performing. He stopped defending against the possibility of failure. He simply stood in the center of the room and breathed. And in that breath, something cracked open. The armor he had built around his heart, the armor of perfectionism and control and fear, it began to dissolve, not all at once, but enough. Enough for the music to reach him, enough for his body to remember why it loved to move, enough for the first authentic expression to emerge from somewhere deeper than technique. When he performed the following week, the audience wept. Not because his movements were more precise, they were actually less precise, but they were alive. They carried the frequency of someone who had stopped fighting with reality and started flowing with it. And that frequency, that resonance of authentic presence, moved through the room like a wave and touched something real in every person who witnessed it. This is the secret that changes everything. You do not create your reality through effort. You create it through resonance. And resonance is not something you do. It is something you allow. It is what happens when you stop trying to be something you are not and start being what you already are at the deepest level of your existence. But here is where it gets interesting. Allowing is not passivity. This is perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of everything we are exploring together. People hear the word surrender and they think it means giving up. They hear the word flow and they think it means floating aimlessly. They hear the word allow and they think it means accepting whatever happens without any creative participation. That is not what this is. Allowing is the most active, most engaged, most powerful state a human being can inhabit. It is the state in which you are fully present, fully aware, fully responsive to the intelligence that moves through all things. It is the state in which your personal will aligns with universal will, and the two become one current flowing in the same direction. Think of a river. A river does not force its way to the ocean. It does not struggle against the landscape, but it is not passive either. It is immensely powerful. It carves canyons. It shapes continents. It sustains entire ecosystems. Its power comes not from resistance but from alignment. It flows with gravity rather than against it. And in that alignment, it becomes one of the most transformative forces on the planet. You are that river. Your thoughts and emotions are the water. The universal intelligence that governs all creation is the gravity. When you align your inner current with that deeper intelligence, you become unstoppable. not through force, through flow, not through control, through coherence, not through manipulation, through resonance. There was a woman in the hills beyond a great city who wove tapestries of extraordinary beauty. But for years, her life was a paradox. Her art was admired, but her existence was miserable. Because she approached everything, not just her weaving, but her relationships, her health, her finances, everything, with the same white-knuckled grip of control. Every thread had to be perfect. Every outcome had to match her expectation exactly. And when reality deviated from her plan, which it always did because reality is alive and alive things do not follow rigid plans, she would unravel everything and start over. She spent more time undoing than creating, more time correcting than flowing, more time fighting with what is than allowing what could be. Her gardens withered not because she neglected them, but because she overtended them. She pulled at seedlings to make them grow faster. She rearranged plants so obsessively that their roots never had time to take hold. Her relationships followed the same pattern. She managed and monitored and adjusted until the people around her felt less like companions and more like threads in a tapestry she was trying to force into a shape that existed only in her mind. The breakthrough came not through effort, but through exhaustion. She simply could not hold on anymore. Life presented her with a situation so far beyond her control that her grip finally broke. And in that breaking, in that terrifying free fall of not knowing and not controlling, something miraculous happened. The tapestry began to weave itself. Not literally, of course, but the circumstances of her life began to arrange themselves in patterns more beautiful than anything she could have designed. Opportunities appeared that she never could have orchestrated. Connections formed that she never could have planned. Her gardens began to flourish the moment she stopped trying to force them into her vision of what they should be. This is the paradox at the heart of creation. The tighter you grip, the less you hold. The more you try to control outcomes, the more outcomes control you. But the moment you release your death grip on how things should be and open yourself to how things want to be, the creative intelligence of the universe rushes in to fill the space you have made. And what it creates is always, always more magnificent than what your limited mind could have imagined. Pause with that for a moment. Let it settle into your body. Not your mind. Your body. Because your body knows this truth even if your mind resists it. Your body knows what it feels like to grip and what it feels like to release. Your body knows the difference between tension and flow, between control and surrender, between forcing and allowing. And right now, in this very moment, you can feel which state you are in. Notice your shoulders. Notice your jaw. Notice your belly. Are you holding or are you open? Are you bracing against life or are you breathing with it? This awareness, this simple act of noticing, is itself a creative act. Because the moment you become aware of tension, you have already begun to dissolve it. The moment you notice that you are gripping, you have already created the possibility of release. Awareness is not passive observation. It is the first movement of transformation. It is the light that enters the dark room, and simply by entering, changes everything. Now let us talk about words. Because words are not just communication, they are creation. Every word you speak is a vibration sent into the field of infinite possibility. Every sentence is a blueprint. Every habitual phrase is an architectural plan for the reality you are building, whether you know it or not. Listen to the words you use when you talk to yourself. Not the words you use in public, the polished, curated language you present to the world. The words you use in private. The ones that run through your mind when you look in the mirror. The ones that surface when you make a mistake. The ones that play on repeat when you are lying in bed at 3 a.m, unable to sleep. Those words are your real creative commands. Those are the instructions the universe is following. If your inner dialogue is, "I am not enough," the universe builds a reality that confirms that statement. If your habitual self-talk is "nothing ever works out for me," the universe arranges circumstances to prove you right. Not because it wants you to suffer, because it is a mirror. It can only reflect what you place before it. And your words, especially the ones charged with emotion, especially the ones you have repeated so many times, they have become invisible to you. Those are the most powerful creative forces in your life. I want you to think about this honestly right now. What is the one phrase you catch yourself repeating most often? The one running in the background, like a program you forgot you installed. Drop it in the comments below. Sometimes just naming it out loud is the first step to rewriting the command. There was a weaver in a secluded valley who spoke to herself with such harshness that her own hands began to tremble. "Clumsy," she would whisper with every dropped thread. "Worthless," she would mutter with every imperfect pattern. And her hands, which were instruments of extraordinary potential, began to fulfill the prophecy of her words. They grew uncertain. They fumbled. They created exactly the clumsiness she had declared into existence. Her tapestries, once flowing and alive, became tangled reflections of her tangled inner speech. But words that wound can also heal. Words that imprison can also liberate. Because the mechanism works in both directions with equal precision. When you begin to speak to yourself with the same tenderness you would offer a child you love, when you begin to replace the harsh inner critic with a voice of compassion and encouragement, the universe receives a new set of instructions, and it follows them with the same faithfulness it followed the old ones. This is not about positive thinking in the shallow sense that phrase is usually meant. This is not about lying to yourself or pretending everything is fine when it is not. This is about recognizing that your words carry creative force and choosing to use that force consciously rather than unconsciously. It is about speaking truth, yes, but choosing which truth to emphasize. Because there are always multiple truths available in any moment. You can focus on what is broken, or you can focus on what is healing. You can narrate your limitations, or you can narrate your possibilities. Both are true. But only one of them opens the door to transformation. The practice is simple, but it requires consistency. Each morning, before the noise of the day fills your awareness, sit in silence and listen. Listen to the first thoughts that arise. Listen to the habitual words that begin to form. And then gently, like redirecting a stream, choose different words. Not forced, not artificial, but intentional. Speak to yourself as though you are speaking to someone you deeply respect, someone whose potential you can see clearly even when they cannot see it themselves. Say the words aloud if you can. Let them vibrate in your throat and chest. Let your body feel the frequency of those words. Because the body does not distinguish between words spoken to it and reality experienced by it. To your nervous system, The words "I am safe" carry the same physiological weight as actually being safe. The words "I am capable" create the same neurological patterns as demonstrated capability. Your words are not descriptions of reality. They are prescriptions for it. And this brings us to perhaps the most important dimension of everything we have been exploring, the dimension of intention. Because all of these principles, attention, emotion, words, resonance, they are tools. And like all tools, they can be used to build or to destroy. A hammer can frame a house or it can shatter a window. The hammer does not care. The caring, the direction, the purpose that comes from the one who holds it. Your intention is the hand that holds the hammer of creation. And the quality of your intention determines the quality of what you create. Not just in terms of external results, but in terms of what the creation does to you, what it makes of you, what it turns you into over time. When your intention is rooted in love, in genuine care for the well-being of yourself and others, the creative process strengthens you. It expands your capacity for joy. It deepens your connection to life. It builds a reality that nourishes everyone it touches, including you. The abundance that flows from loving intention is self-renewing. It does not deplete. It does not extract. It circulates and grows and multiplies because it is aligned with the fundamental nature of the universe, which is expansion, which is generosity, which is the endless outpouring of creative energy into form. But when your intention is rooted in fear, in the desire to control or dominate or take more than your share, the creative process consumes you. It may produce external results for a time. It may generate wealth or power or influence, but it hollows you out from the inside. It makes you suspicious, anxious, defensive. It creates a reality built on sand that requires constant vigilance to maintain. And eventually, inevitably, it collapses. Not because the universe is punishing you, but because structures built on extraction cannot sustain themselves. They violate the fundamental law of reciprocity that governs all living systems. This is the warning encoded in the very fabric of existence. Not a commandment handed down from above, but a description of how energy actually works. What you give, you receive. What you send out, returns. What you create with love, sustains. What you create with harm, consumes. This is not philosophy. This is physics operating at the level of consciousness. So how do you check your intention? How do you know whether you are creating from love or from fear? The answer is surprisingly simple. You feel it in your body right now. When you think about what you want to create, what do you feel in your chest? Is there expansion or contraction? Is there warmth or coldness? Is there openness or tightness? Your body is the most honest instrument you possess. It cannot lie. Your mind can rationalize anything. Your mind can dress up selfishness as ambition and call it virtue. Your mind can disguise fear as caution and call it wisdom. But your body knows. Your body always knows. When you are creating from alignment, from love, from genuine intention, your body opens. Your breathing deepens. Your muscles soften. There is a sense of rightness that has nothing to do with logic and everything to do with resonance. You feel connected. You feel alive. You feel like you are participating in something larger than yourself. When you are creating from misalignment, from fear, from the desire to manipulate or control, your body contracts. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your jaw tightens. Your shoulders rise toward your ears. There is a sense of strain, of pushing, of forcing. You feel isolated. You feel like you are fighting against something. And you are. You are fighting against the natural flow of creation itself. Let this be your compass, not your thoughts, not your rationalizations, not the stories you tell yourself about why you deserve what you are taking, or why the ends justify the means. Let your body be your compass. It is directly connected to the intelligence that creates worlds. It knows the difference between alignment and dissonance the way a tuning fork knows the difference between harmony and discord. Trust it. Listen to it. Let it guide you. And here is what happens when you do. Here is what happens when you align your attention, your emotion, your words, and your intention with the highest frequency available to you. Something extraordinary begins to unfold. Not overnight. Not in a flash of dramatic transformation, but steadily, persistently, with the quiet inevitability of dawn following darkness. Your circumstances begin to shift, not because you forced them to, but because you changed the signal and the mirror changed its reflection. Opportunities appear that you could not have engineered. People enter your life who carry exactly the medicine you need. Resources flow toward you with an ease that feels almost suspicious to a mind trained to believe that everything must be hard. Doors open that you did not even know existed. And the most remarkable thing is that it all feels natural. It feels like coming home, because you are not creating something foreign. You are allowing something that was always there to finally become visible. This is what the ancients meant when they spoke of manifestation. Not the shallow version sold in modern marketplaces. Not the idea that you can think your way to a sports car, but the deep, sacred understanding that you are a creative being living in a creative universe, and that when you align your inner world with the principles that govern creation, the outer world has no choice but to respond. It is law. It is as certain as the sun rising, and it is available to you right now, in this moment, without condition. But you must use it wisely. You must use it with reverence. You must use it with the understanding that you are not separate from the web of life, but woven into it so completely that every thread you pull affects the entire tapestry. What you create for yourself, you create for the world. What you heal in yourself, you heal in the collective. What you poison in yourself, you poison in the shared field of human consciousness. There is no private creation. There is no action without consequence. There is no thought without reverberation. This is why the warning exists, not to frighten you, not to limit you, but to awaken you to the full scope of your power and the full weight of your responsibility. You are not small. You are not insignificant. You are not a passive observer watching life happen on a screen. You are the screen and the projector and the light and the story all at once. And every moment, every breath, every choice is an act of creation that ripples outward into infinity. So create beautifully. Create consciously. Create with the kind of intention that you would be proud to see reflected back to you 1,000-fold. Because it will be. The mirror never lies. The echo never distorts. What you send out returns with mathematical precision, amplified by the infinite intelligence that holds all things in its embrace. Right now, in this moment, you have an opportunity. Not tomorrow, not when conditions are perfect, not when you have read more books or attended more seminars or finally figured out the secret formula. Right now. Because the only moment that has creative power is this one. The past is a memory. The future is a projection. But this moment, this breath, this heartbeat, this is where creation happens. This is where the signal is sent. This is where the frequency is set. So set it consciously. Close your eyes if you can. Place your hand on your chest. Feel the rhythm of your own heart. That rhythm is not random. It is the pulse of the same intelligence that spins galaxies and grows forests and turns seeds into trees. You are made of that intelligence. You are an expression of it. You are it, looking at itself through the unique lens of your particular existence. And from that place, from that recognition, ask yourself one question. What do I want to create? Not what do I want to get? Not what do I want to take? What do I want to create? What do I want to add to the fabric of existence? What frequency do I want to broadcast into the field? What reflection do I want to see? In the mirror of my life, let the answer arise not from your mind, but from the deepest part of you. The part that existed before your name, before your story, before your wounds and your defenses, and your carefully constructed identity. The part that is pure creative potential, pure awareness, pure love. Let that part speak, and then listen, and then act on what you hear. Not with force, with faith, not with desperation, with devotion, not with the frantic energy of someone trying to escape their life, but with the calm certainty of someone who knows they are creating it. This is the practice. This is the path. This is the ancient wisdom dressed in new language for a new time. And it is yours. It has always been yours. The only question is whether you will use it, and how. The universe is not withholding anything from you. It never has been. It is waiting, with infinite patience, for you to stop asking for what you already have and start using what you have always been. You are the creative force you have been seeking. You are the answer to your own prayer. You are the manifestation you have been trying to attract. There is nothing to get. There is only something to remember. And that remembering, that moment of recognition, when you finally see yourself as you truly are, that, the moment, everything changes. But remember the warning. Carry it with you like a lantern in the dark, not as a source of fear, but as a source of clarity. Let it remind you that power without love is a fire without a hearth. It will burn everything it touches, including the one who lit it. Let it remind you that the universe does not forget, that every frequency you broadcast is recorded in the fabric of reality and returns to you with compound interest. Let it remind you that the greatest use of this knowledge is not to accumulate more for yourself, but to become more of yourself, more present, more compassionate, more alive, more aligned with the creative intelligence that breathes through all things. That is the real secret. Not how to get what you want, but how to become who you are. Because when you become who you truly are, what you want and what the universe wants for you become the same thing. And in that alignment, in that sacred convergence of personal will and universal intelligence, miracles are not just possible, they are inevitable. Consider coming back to this video each morning before the day begins, letting these words reset your frequency before the noise of the world has a chance to pull you off center. And if someone you love came to mind while you were listening, share this with them. When you pass this kind of awareness to another person, you are not just helping them. You are amplifying your own signal, creating a ripple in the collective field that strengthens the very frequency you are learning to hold. Breathe into that. Feel it in your body. Let it settle into your cells, and then carry it forward into every moment of your life. Not as a belief, not as a hope, as a lived reality, as the foundation upon which you build everything, as the frequency from which you never waver. The knowledge is yours now. The power is yours. It has always been yours. Use it well. Use it wisely. Use it with love. And watch as the universe rises to meet you in ways you never dared to imagine. If this resonated with something deep inside you, if you felt a shift, even a subtle one, in the way you see yourself and your relationship to reality, then you are already changing. The signal is already different. The mirror is already beginning to reflect something new. Stay in this frequency. Return to it when the noise of the world pulls you away. And know that every time you choose alignment over reaction, every time you choose love over fear, every time you choose creation over consumption, you are not just changing your own life. You are changing the field. You are contributing to the evolution of consciousness itself. And that, more than any material manifestation, is the highest use of everything you have learned here today. Now take this understanding even further. Watch the 5 hidden laws of reality. You're using them wrong right now, because it reveals the exact laws operating beneath everything we just explored and shows you the specific ways most people unknowingly work against them every single day.